I do get into exactly what we're going to be doing in the budget, it is important to just point out Florida for 2 years in a row has ranked #1 overall in education by U.S. News and World Report. And part of the reason, I think, is because when COVID hit, you had a decision to make. Are you going to approach this rationally? Are you going to put the interests of students first? Or are you going to follow the direction of very partisan school unions and try to just lock kids out of school and say tough luck for 6 months, 9 months, a year, year and a half? And in Florida, we said, you know what, kids need to be back in school. And so we were I think we had the highest percentage, 99 to 100% in-person education in 2020-21 school year. And yet some other states that had half the kids had no access to in-person education. So that was really important. We had a lot of opposition to that. I know the school union in Florida sued us because they wanted to lock kids out of school. I know there were demonstrations here in Miami with the school union here trying to say all the kids were going to die. That was wrong, what they were doing. That was politics and putting ideology and their own interests ahead of the interests of students. So happily, we won that battle. We made sure that kids were able to get an education. And I think the rest really is history, because had we done what had the school unions won that fight, we would not be #1 in education in this country. There's just no way that would be the case. So that was really, really a focal point for us. Now, one of the things I noticed in that fight was, you had some of these entrenched interests that were pushing to say kids should not go to school, but most of the teachers themselves wanted the kids to be able to come back in class. I mean, I remember we went to a school that dealt with a lot of students that had unique abilities. They could not do it on Zoom. They needed to be in there working, and so a lot of these teachers did that. And just think about it. If you dedicate your life to this, do you want somebody to say you're non-essential? Because that's effectively what it is to say kids didn't need to be in school. No, most of the teachers understood that they needed to do. So that's part of the reason we've worked really hard to deliver the salary increases that we've been doing for the last many, many years. And so since 2019 to the present, we've had by far the biggest increase in teacher compensation that has ever happened in the history of the state of Florida. And that's something that the legislature has worked with us on, and we're very happy that that's the case. We've done a lot to be able to help teachers even apart from salary. We've extended the length of temporary teaching certificates from 3 to 5 years. We've also eliminated unnecessary bureaucratic requirements for certification. Some of these things can turn into like a guild where you kind of go through this just to go through it, but there's no actual reason for some of this stuff to be there. So we've tried to cut through that, pave the pathway for good people to be able to do good things in the classroom. And just think about it. If you can't hire somebody that retires from running like a Fortune 500 company to teach business at a high school because they don't have proper certification, something is wrong with that. And so we've worked hard to address that. We've also established, as part of our push to enhance focus on American civics and the Constitution, we enacted the Civics Literacy Excellence Initiative, which gives teachers $3,000 if they complete a first-of-its-kind civics training and they earn the newly created Civic Seal of Excellence endorsement to add to their teaching credentials. And so this is a course. We got some of the best scholars from around the country to offer instruction about what are the foundations of America? What are the ideas that went into our Constitution? It provides great emphasis on core things involving Western civilization, which you think everybody would know, but that's a lost art in many of our universities. I'd say the vast majority of our universities are not only they're not embracing the Western tradition, they're actively seeking to sabotage the Western tradition. Now in Florida, our state university system, we are embracing the classics. We're embracing the West. We're embracing these ideas of freedom. We're embracing these ideas that really make a difference and has made this country what it is. So we had 19,000 teachers go through that program. It's received incredible marks, and it's something that we really have to do. We've put an emphasis on civics. The legislature's worked with us. We can say, all students need to know this and all that. You got to take a course in high school, all this stuff, and we've done that. But if the teachers aren't well versed in the basics, then it's not going to work. And the reality is, most universities you go to, even if you're seeking out this type of stuff, the options aren't great. There's every fad leftist cause will have a course assigned and even a major, but not necessarily this. So we've recognized that, and I think we've really filled the void in a really, really significant way. We've also understood that not everyone comes to the teaching profession traveling the same road. We now have 13 different pathways in Florida where individuals can work to become a teacher in our schools, one of which is tailor-made for military veterans who have honorably served our country. We value the unique experience that veterans bring, and we give qualified veterans a few extra years to earn their full certificate while getting additional classroom experience. And so far, we have almost 100 Florida veterans that have taken advantage of this pathway. When we established this pathway a couple years ago, there was the head of a school union, I think on the west coast of Florida, that said something to the effect of, you serve in Kabul, what does that have to do? How does that help kids, learn? I actually think it could help a lot kids to learn, because I think these are important experiences. I think that serving your country is a noble cause, and I think that what people develop in terms of leadership and in terms of character really matters, and all that is forged in these battlefields abroad. And you hope that people don't have to go do it, but when they do it, they are bringing back very valuable experience. Now, last year, we signed HB 1035, which established a Teacher's Bill of Rights here in the state of Florida. Now, one of the things that the bill did was said, with cell phones, students should not have cell phones in the classroom. They can check them at the front of the class, and actually some schools say no cell phones, period, but at a minimum, you sit in class and you learn, and you can't have everybody on their phones all the time. And so I remember when we did that, it's just kind of typical people like, they were trying to attack us. Now, the school districts that have really embraced this, they've never done better in terms of what's happened with the classroom experience. The students even admit it's better. The teachers admit it better, and the parents like it better. So that has been huge to make sure that you have order in the classroom. And think about it, what does it say? Who's going to want to go through education, preparing, trying to become a teacher, then you get in the classroom and everyone's just texting the whole time? What does that serve? So that was something that's really, really significant, and I'm glad that we did it, and I think other states have also followed suit. We've also empowered in that bill and in the Teacher's Bill of Rights, we've empowered teachers to preserve safety and order in their classrooms by creating a presumption in law that they will not be liable if they act to protect students. What happens is sometimes you have massive discipline problems, but then if the teacher does something to ensure discipline, then all of a sudden it's the teacher's fault and the disruptive student is somehow becomes a victim. No, that's not going to fly. Every student has a right to learn in a safe and orderly classroom, and every teacher has a right to provide instruction with a safe and orderly classroom, and we've helped deliver support for that. We've also given Florida teachers an avenue to report if they've been directed to break the law by their administrators or school board. So, for example, the Florida legislature can pass statutes, governor can sign and execute those statutes, and we have some not very many, but we have some around the state who think that the laws are basically recommendations and they can just simply do what they want to do. Well, that's not the way it works. And so if they're telling a teacher that the teacher should disregard state law, then the teacher is going to be able to report that, and we're going to be able to take corrective action. And if you're somebody who's an elected superintendent, if you're an elected member of school board somewhere, and you are doing that, affirmatively trying to sabotage state law, that is absolutely grounds for suspension from office under the governor's constitutional executive authority. And we've wielded that against prosecutors who have not been willing to enforce the law, and we absolutely will wield it if you have school officials who are disregarding the law. We've also established in that bill the Heroes in the Classroom bonus program. This provides a sign-on bonus to retired first responders and veterans who become full-time classroom teachers. We also established the Teacher Apprenticeship Program as an alternative pathway for individuals to enter the teaching profession. This is just my instinct, but I bet you most people would agree. If you had a choice to have somebody be an apprentice to a teacher and learn in the classroom versus going to some school of education somewhere, what do you think is better hands-on experience to actually become a good teacher? Being the apprentice and being in that classroom is better, and our Teachers' Bill of Rights recognize that. And then finally, we established the Dual Enrollment Educator Scholarship Program to help high school teachers obtain a graduate degree or other credentials to provide dual enrollment coursework to high school students. We really believe that high school students should have opportunities to earn college credit. Now, part of that could be you do the Cambridge test, you do the advanced placement, you do international baccalaureate, but some of it, and this may even be the most effective, you just do dual enrollment. So you can do a high school here in Miami, and you can do Miami-Dade College, and you can earn credit right there. I think we have students that do a year or two worth of credit in high school, and then they go and are able to move forward. So, used to be students would want to do kind of 4.5 years in college, get that extra football season in, but we haven't won national championships very recently, which we used to all the time. I mean, in the 80s and 90s, but now you can get these credentials and or get the college credit. You can graduate college in like 2 years, a 4-year college in the state of Florida, if you take advantage of all this. So we want more teachers to be able to be instructors there. So that's a pretty robust Teachers' Bill of Rights, and we're very, very happy that we did that. We also signed SB 256, which ushered in a new era of accountability for highly partisan, wayward school unions here in Florida. And what this bill did was it said no automatic deductions in the paycheck. If you want to join the union here in Dade County, you can write a check and you can do that, but we as the state are not going to facilitate those deductions. Part of it is just provides maximum choice without coercion, but part of it's a recognition that these school unions have become ultra partisan. They've been trying to impose left-wing ideology, and the thing is, it's like, wait a minute, are you representing teachers to get better pay and benefits, or are you trying to push a political agenda? And unfortunately, so much of it has been about pushing a political agenda. So this bill really has provided huge amounts of accountability, and it's given a lifeline to so many people in the school systems who didn't feel represented by a union that's pursuing a political agenda. And make no mistake, we had school unions throughout the state that, as we have provided more money for teacher salaries, what we've said is it's a categorical amount of money only can go to increasing teacher salaries. Because what happens is they say, oh, teachers need more money, you increase education spending, and then they spend it on bureaucracy and other things. So we said, and the legislature said, only to raise salaries. Well, what some of the school unions did, even though that money was available every year July 1st when the new budget takes effect, they would withhold the money to raise salaries for their own teachers they're supposed to represent and try to use that as leverage to get other concessions. And I'm just thinking to myself, the money's already been provided. You should have been working to get that money out the door and get it in the pockets of the people that you purport to represent. But it shows that they put their political agenda ahead of not only the students, which of course they do, but even the teachers that they purport to serve. So I know that there's a decertification battle here in Miami-Dade, and all I can say is that old union in Miami-Dade fought tooth and nail to keep kids locked out of school. They did not want kids in person during COVID, and they've worked really hard to push a political agenda, which is not what we need in our schools, and we about education, not indoctrination. So that is going to be unfolding in the next couple months, but I think that empowering the teachers to make that decision free of coercion was the right thing to do. And if you're not providing the services, why should someone give money out of their paycheck just to do that? And you don't need them to raise pay. We're raising pay in spite of those unions, not because of them, with what we've done in the Florida legislature. So keep that in mind. So you are going to have an election this summer with United Teachers of Dade, so they are going to be able to choose an alternative union or to not have any union at all as they want to, and that will happen very, very shortly. But make no mistake about it, we are putting our money where our mouth is in the state of Florida, not just investing in teachers, investing in universities, and making it so this is attainable for people. I would point out that our in-state tuition for our public universities is lower than just about any private K through 12 schools nowadays. It's about $6,300 a year for tuition. Where are you going to be able to beat that? And the good students who have the bright futures, they have no tuition or 75% off tuition depending on where you're at. So nobody has made it more affordable than the state of Florida, and that's because we've invested prudently. Now, in terms of teacher pay, so the budget, we're going through kind of the last stages of that. Some of these legislators that may have different projects. This is going to be probably the week that all comes to a head, and so we haven't made final decisions on every little line item in the budget, but we have approved, I would say, probably 90% of the budget at this point. And one of the things that we've approved are the major investments in education and the major investments in raising teacher pay. And part of what we've done is we've provided bonuses, we've provided increased money for salaries, but we've said, okay, how are we going to get the most bang out of the buck? And what we saw was when I took office, the average minimum salary throughout the state of Florida was just a shade under $40,000. And so we're like, all right, and this was even before Bidenflation. Like, how are people going to go through college and then want to go in? Not that money's everything, because people want to serve. No, you're not going to make as much as a teacher as you would if you were, a business executive. And I think people make that decision because they care about what they're doing. But we're like, we've got to get that average minimum salary up. So we said that we were going to get the average minimum salary up from just under $40,000 to over $47,000. That would make us #1 in the Southeast. And of course, places that have higher costs of living like Dade, they would be higher, Collier, other parts. And then we have rural areas that, well, $47,000 is probably twice as much in some of our rural areas as it would take you in Miami. That's just the reality because the costs are lower. So since 2020, we've invested over $3 billion in teacher pay initiatives. So we've not only accomplished that goal, but we now have the average minimum teacher salary is over $48,000. So that's up from about $39,000 5 years ago. And in many districts where the cost of living is higher, teachers can start out higher than that state average because we understand there's a lot of difference between South Florida and maybe, say, North Central Florida. But that has been really significant movement in a positive direction with that. So I'm glad we were able to do that. And then we've also done other teacher increases. When COVID hit, we appreciated teachers being in the classroom, and so we did $1,000 bonuses for all public school charter school teachers and principals in the entire state of Florida, which not many other states were doing that. Today, though, I'm able to announce that on top of everything we've already done, we will have this year in our teacher pay categorical $1.25 billion for teacher salary increases. This is an increase of close to $250 million in funding over the previous year's teacher categorical, and that brings our total investment in teacher pay increases to $4.6 billion since 2020. And that's where we want the money to go. This categorical can only be used to increase salaries for teachers. Now, I noticed the United Teachers of Dade president makes almost $300,000 in total compensation. That is one model. I don't want any of this money. I want it going to teachers. I don't want it going to the head of the teacher union. I want it to go to the teachers. So it's going to be a strong budget for education. This is the most we've ever done in Florida history in terms of a teacher categorical. We're proud that we're able to do that. You've also seen the major expansion and choice in this state. We've got 400,000 students in charter schools now. We've got 400,000 on private scholarship. And then we've got a lot of programs within school districts that give parents choice to send their kids in different schools across the district. And so that's all been part of a winning formula. We're proud to rank #1 in education. We're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal one bit. And with that, I'd like to introduce some of our